Welcome to Sports Charlotte, the podcast about sports in Charlotte. My name is Herb White. I am editor-in-chief of the Charlotte Post. And, of course, riding along today, Cameron Williams.
Oh, there you go. Hey, see, it feels good to be introduced.
I'm sure it does. And there's plenty of stuff to talk about upon your introduction. It is Thursday, January 30, 2025. First month of the year is on its way out.
And crazy how fast time flies, ain't it?
Yeah, even if you're having fun.
Or not having fun.
Well, I tell you who isn't having fun right now, the Charlotte Hornets.
Oh.
And just when there was a little bit of hope that maybe this 9-game homestand would pay dividends, it hasn't.
People can start getting hurt again. So, obviously, we've talked about it already. Brandon Miller's out the rest of the year. But then, LaMelo makes a jumper, jogging back down the floor, steps on Jared Vanderbilt of the Lakers' foot, rolls his ankle. He's being reevaluated in a week for an ankle sprain. It's like, do we have to just put bubble wrap around these players at this point? Because they look like they were finally getting a morsel of a rhythm together, and then the injury bug comes biting.
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe in luck, but can there be a more unfortunate team in the
NBA? You'd be hard pressed to find one. I mean, well, Washington, they're 6-40.
No, they're just bad.
But as far as getting hurt, no. I mean, I think the Hornets are by far one of the worst, at least injury-prone teams. I mean, they looked awful against the Nets the other night. Last night, they looked pitiful. Actually favored in that game, believe it or not, by 1.5 and lost by 21.
Vegas knew how to soak somebody.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like their schedule is going to get any easier. I mean, you got LA coming to town on Friday, then Saturday in a back-to-back you face Denver. You get a little bit of a breather against Washington.
A team that they've already lost to.
Yeah. But believe it or not, that would be considered the breather because then they face Milwaukee and San Antonio.
So what do you do in the meantime? You have your top two players out, and outside of it's kind of a meh lineup of folks who have not necessarily established names for themselves in the NBA. What do you do in the meantime if you're Charles Lee?
I guess you just grin and bear it.
Probably not grinning.
Well, like I said, there's nothing you really can do. You just try to hope that your complimentary guys can kind of pull the weight. And at least in the Lakers game, you know, what was headed for an absolute trouncing, down by 20 after the first, they fought back and didn't have LaMelo for the majority of that second half, or didn't have him for the entire second half and the majority of the second quarter, rather. And then the complimentary pieces, they really came to play. Josh Green knocked down a few threes, Josh Okogie, which now I'm seeing rumors where they're trying to ship him off for draft capital. Like, the man's playing good. Why not keep him around?
He didn't even get a chance to unpack.
So, I don't think there's any salvaging this season at this point. Unless you can get all these guys back and keep them back. I mean, you're not getting Miller back, so that's a moot point. But it's hard covering a team that you know has potential, but can't stay on the floor.
Yeah, it's and I think that might make for a fairly quiet run up to the trade deadline. It's like, okay, if there were players worth moving, are you moving them now? I mean, and who would any team want? Now, I can see where maybe Miles Bridges could be a good fit for a team that might need some depth on their way to making a push to the playoffs. But outside of that, Mark Williams, I don't think they want to get rid of him. You've already traded away one center.
It's like I said a couple weeks ago now. Bridges for Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, and a first.
No.
I'm just saying.
2 weeks later, that still isn't.
Austin Reeves cooked the Hornets.
Who hasn't?
I'm just saying. The man, he's a good player. And, I mean, Hachimura didn't play because of load management or whatever the heck that is, but I'd do it. I'd do it, not think twice about it.
Well, we'll see what happens on the way towards the trade deadline and the NBA All-Star break, which at this point probably won't have any Hornets representation.
No.
LaMelo Ball obviously is trying to get over his latest injury. Brandon Miller is not capable of participating at this point. So I guess everybody will just have to bear it one more year of injuries and not so great results in terms of wins and losses. Moving on, Charlotte FC. We talk soccer on occasion around here.
I love soccer.
We know.
A lot of Premier League, but I like I like MLS too.
So would you consider yourself a soccer snob?
No.
It's a real thing, you know.
No, I enjoy better soccer. It's not a snob, but
Oh, I can't wait to hear this. You enjoy better soccer as opposed to Major League Soccer?
teams in relegation in the Premier League would probably put a whooping on Inter Miami and these teams amongst the top of the MLS. So call it a hot take if you will, but yeah, better soccer.
I'm not here to argue. Okay, yeah, I am. But at any rate, a relegated team in the Premier League is better than the best team in MLS.
I didn't say 100% better. I said it'd be close. I think they would definitely compete, and I think they played 10 times. Probably the team in relegation status might win 6 of them. So don't call me a soccer snob. I am a Premier League fan.
Oh, okay. And Premier League is the best league on the planet.
You got 3 Premier League teams in the top 16 of the Champions League, which is across all of Europe. So, come on. Yeah. And then not to mention the 4th team. So only 4 teams from the Premier League get into the Champions League each year. And the 4th team is Man City, who continued their streak of making the knockout stage. So, what am I missing here? 4 teams in, 4 teams make the knockout stage, 3 of which are in the top 16 automatically.
Okay.
Back to FC, Charlotte FC.
That is, absolutely. They are wrapping up their initial training camp down in Florida. And next stop, after a quick trip to Charlotte to, I guess, pack or whatever, it's off to Coachella Valley in California for more friendlies and training. There you have reason to be optimistic these days. Our soccer correspondent, Steve Goldberg, has been all over the latest news and information as it relates to Charlotte FC, and he's put together a really good piece on how the addition of Wilfried Zaha.
Tomato.
Well,
okay. I think it sounds cooler. Zaha.
It does. It sounds more exotic. But at any rate, he played in the Premier League, the best soccer league on the planet, at Crystal Palace, and he is now part of Charlotte FC. He didn't necessarily figure on getting to MLS at this stage in his career, but he's here, and people who are observers of MLS think that this is a really big deal, and he gives the crown a certain cachet, if you will, in terms of the attack. It was middling to not so great last year in many respects. Uh, Charlotte managed to make it into the playoffs based in part or a large measure on defense and goalkeeping. This signing changes that dynamic. He's expected to score as a designated player with that type of EPL experience. For instance, his last 3 years at Crystal Palace, 33 goals, 7 assists. And you pair him with Patrick Ajimong, who emerged as a viable threat last year in the attack and has turned heads at the U.S. men's national team January camp with his scoring ability. It sounds as if Charlotte might be onto something.
I read this factoid about him, about Zaha, or however you pronounce it. Zaha. He joined Crystal Palace as an 8-year-old. 8. Now, of course, he's not playing and stuff like that, but 8 years old, I mean, that's younger than Messi when he signed at Barcelona. I mean, so, look, he made his professional debut at 17. Across all competitions, he played in the Premier League 450-something games, 90 goals, 52 assists. So he's going to make an immediate impact. If he doesn't, then I'd be very shocked and kind of, I'm sure the Crown fan base will be scratching their heads as to why he isn't making an impact if he doesn't. But we've seen it time and time again. Players come from overseas, they dominate. Messi's first year with Inter Miami, dominant. Zlatan with the Galaxy, dominant. So I expect maybe not that kind of dominance, but I expect him to be an immediate contributor, and I'd go as far as to say he might lead the team in goals.
Okay, well that would be obviously what Charlotte is paying for
and hoping for.
Yeah, but I think that if you look at this now, I mean, as opposed to being 8 when he signed with Crystal Palace, he's 32 years old now. Yeah. Athletically, he still should be somewhere close to the prime. Yeah. The last year or two he spent with other teams in Europe did not get a whole lot of playing time. So I don't know if that was due to a drop off in his abilities or whether it was the wrong fit. Obviously, Charlotte is banking on it was the wrong fit, and they will tailor stuff to take advantage of his skills. Dean Smith, the coach of Charlotte FC, has seen Zaha up close as an EPL veteran and coach himself. He knows this stuff coming and going. And if he signed off on it, I would imagine that they expect that he has plenty of fuel in the tank. Zaha, that is.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's well put. I'm looking forward to just the season as a whole. I mean, I know last year did not end in a very happy, somber tone with leading late against Orlando, and then a late goal puts Orlando back on top. And I remember getting your text. I'm sitting there out with a buddy, and I'm just like, are they really going to squander this? And lo and behold, they squandered it. The 90th plus 12.
Yeah.
So could this season motto, if you will, be redemption?
I would go with this. It's unfinished business.
Huh.
They managed to make the MLS playoffs for the first time. This was not the play-in round, as opposed to what they did in 2023. And fifth in the East, they lost that 4-5 opening round to Orlando. So they were right there. And if all else is equal, you add somebody like Zaha and you return a very good chunk of what made this group good last year, you should think that they would climb up the table in 2025. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. But Zaha, say it with some zest.
See,
Yeah.
Zaha.
Yeah. But
I
we'll
mean, come
see.
on, you know when he scores, the announcer, Zaha,
Which is the way you said it sounded really close to yeehaw, but okay. And maybe that's the Americanized version of what we'll wind up with. But soccer supporters are so ingenious and inventive. Who knows what they'll come up with to celebrate his accomplishments in Charlotte?
Well, from the ball you kick to the ball you dribble.
Mm-hmm.
Other Charlotte teams are, well, I would say being competitive, but Charlotte lost a very close game with Temple, men's basketball, that is, in double overtime. I know Charlotte fans are a bit on the tiffed side, considering they called a foul on Nick Graves very late with 2 seconds to go in the game that put Temple at the free throw line to go up 90-89, which ended up being the final score. Giancarlo Rosado did get a good last second heave that just bounced off the rim from just over half court. So nice valiant effort there. But my biggest thing with this is bad foul call or not. Charlotte shot roughly 60-something% from the free throw line. You got to knock down the freebies. You don't miss 9 free throws in that game, it's a moot point. You probably don't even go to the first overtime. So there's that. However, Charlotte looks more competitive. When I say that, I just mean they've been in close games. They won their first conference game, just their past game before Temple. So I think Aaron Fern's got things going back in the right direction. But now it's about being able to get over the hump and stay over the hump. And I don't think they've found the consistency to do that. Now, however, on the women's side, had a 19-9 first quarter against Memphis. They got out to a fast start, which Tamika Reed has been preaching to her team this whole season. Got out to a fast start, kept their foot on the gas. I love looking at the ESPN analytics and the game flow and just seeing constant scoring. Usually, a lot of times, the running joke around more so Charlotte men's basketball than women's, you see a lot of flat lines. You score, score for those. Anyway, for those
The
watching,
visuals.
you got to have the visuals. But held on to win. Had a good fourth quarter as well after they kind of they dealt with the push that Memphis had in that third quarter, where Memphis did win the third quarter 20-13, but Charlotte bounced back and won the fourth 22-16. Showed great resilience there. So second conference win for Coach Reed. Does she have the flow going now?
That's a good question. I think that she may still have those concerns about intensity at home as opposed to on the road. And the home record is just about the same as
Yeah.
the road record.
You really don't want
And
that.
no, you don't. You have to be able to win at home because the road is obviously going to be more difficult. So if you can't make something of the home cooking,
Yeah.
you've got a problem.
Well, and you look at a lot of these home games, they've been lopsided. A 14-point loss to UTSA at home, 21-point loss to Tulane at home. East Carolina was a little bit closer, started figuring some things out there, but then you win on the road at FAU and at Memphis, but in between you lose by 24 to Rice. It's like, when is that home energy or home? Well, it starts with fans showing up. I've been to a handful, probably more than a handful now, of women's games this year at Halton Arena. No one shows up. You got to be there to support them. And I know support. You want to support a good product, and they're trying to put that on the court. But we've kind of beaten a dead horse on this podcast before, discussing NIL and how that plays into that. So it's the whole chicken and the egg analogy, like you used to say. You're either going to donate and be able to get good players, or don't donate and not have good players. But then the fans are like, well, why would I donate if we can't produce a good product? But they're not producing a good product because they don't have the players or the money to go out and get the players to produce a good product. So it's really a darned if you do, darned if you don't situation, but it's the boat that Charlotte finds themselves in.
And it's also something that's endemic to Group of Five schools anyway, because they are not the ACC, the Big Ten, the SEC, or the Big 12. It's just that way. It's inherently creating haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
And if you're in Conference USA or the AAC or any mid-major, there's going to be inherent inequity, and you can have pockets, but pockets are deeper in some areas, and then there's other areas where there are no pockets at all. You're just running around butt naked, basically. Or
you did not just say that.
But that's the way it works in collegiate sports. It's an arms race. It's a facilities race, and now it's a money race when you're talking about paying athletes, and that's just the way it is. So you can either, it's one thing to complain about it, but it's another thing to go about finding the correct path to building a program out. So we'll just see how the 49ers do that as a program.
So what are we looking forward to the rest of the week and weekend?
For me personally, in Charlotte, I am looking forward to Johnson C. Smith and Winston-Salem State basketball. We have not talked a whole bunch about Smith basketball this season, probably for good reason. The Golden Bulls are 8-9, which in retrospect I think is actually pretty good for a program that's in transition on the men's side. The Winston-Salem State Rams that program has just cratered, which is surprising to me, considering the resources, the history, and just the overall vibe as one of the CIAA's perennial best teams. But the Rams are far from that now. I mean, they're lurking near the bottom of their division, and it's befuddling to me. So, two programs that are trying to get it together. We'll meet over at Bray Boy Gym tonight, and regardless of records, they have a healthy disdain for each other, which is good. And we'll just leave it there, but it should be fairly electric tonight. How about you?
Well, I'm sure I'll get crucified on this in Charlotte circles because, boy, they love to hate on ACC schools. But it's rivalry week, dang it. Duke, North Carolina. The Blue Bloods. Cooper Flag and them Blue Devils.
I'm surprised you would actually even call North Carolina a Blue Blood.
I mean, I'm not going to disrespect them. I mean, do I like them? No.
Oh, okay. You have
but
a healthy amount of animosity, huh?
Yeah. Well, my boy Langston works over at The Observer. If he's listening to this podcast, he'll tell you about my healthy animosity.
Okay.
But at any rate, I mean, it's a game that always delivers, no matter the records, where, let's just put it quite frankly, Carolina is terrible, as Charles Barkley would say this year. 9 losses before the end of January. But, this game ain't going to be a blowout. It never seems to be. The ones that are very few and far between. 2020 is a prime example. Carolina, terrible. If they would have had the NCAA tournament that year, Carolina would not have been in the field of 68. They'd take Duke to double overtime or whatever at their place, or I think it was just single overtime. Yeah, that's right, because former Charlotte area high school player, Wendell Moore, Concord, Cox Mill, but had a Charlotte address, hit the game winner in that game. But, I mean, that game shouldn't have been close, but it was. So it's a rivalry that never ceases to amaze. and I look forward to that game on Saturday, 6:30, ESPN Network.
Now, to me, the big change with this, that game is on at 6:30. Now, in the old days, like last year, that game would have been a primetime game.
Well, it's 6:30 on a Saturday. Normally, the games they have on like a Tuesday or Thursday, if and when they do have games against each other on a Tuesday or Thursday, it's like the 9 o'clock game.
Yeah, but you would think though, as the alleged best rivalry in basketball, and maybe one of the best rivalries in all of sports, you would want to put it in a time slot to get maximum eyeballs on it.
Well, maybe on a Saturday night I don't know. I mean, we don't see TV ratings, but I mean, I'm sure ESPN, their marketing and their ratings people aren't stupid. So, I mean, I'm sure. Let's put it this way: that game at 6:30 will get more eyes on it than Kentucky and Arkansas when John Calipari returns to Rupp Arena at 9. Promise.
I'm betting the ESPN folks have a different perspective on that. That's why that game is on at 9. But
okay,
see.
we'll go back next week and I'll review the ratings.
Okay, all right.
Numbers and volume and ratings overall.
Okay. How about this? In football, generally the games that you don't want to lose or the games you must win, homecoming and your biggest rival.
Yeah.
Is Hubert Davis in trouble if he not only loses twice to Duke, but gets eviscerated in the process?
Hey, man, he's in trouble already.
Well, would this just make it even worse?
Oh, yeah. You lose to Duke twice this year, don't make the NCAA tournament, he's out. He's out. There's a darn good consensus amongst people within the Carolina fraternities and things like that he might be out anyway. So he'll always be able to hang his hat on. They beat him in the Final Four with Roy Williams recruits. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, that's not.
But he hasn't proven he can be consistent. I mean, if they lose or if they don't make the NCAA tournament, they'll be 2 in 4 years or something. That hadn't happened since the Doherty era. That's when I was.
Yeah.
So, not looking good for QB. I'll put it lightly.
Well, there's still the ACC tournament.
Good luck with that.
That's a lifeline.
Yeah, which they'll probably they'll probably have to play 5 games in 5 days to win it.
Well, stranger things have happened. See NC State last year.
They only played 4 and 4, I thought.
Yeah, but they weren't very good.
Well, no.
And not given much.
But I mean, Duke's won 4 games in 4 days.
Well, I mean, but that's the beauty of tournament basketball. So, there you go.
That's where I'll leave it.
Okay. All right. Well, and we're going to leave this episode alone, but not without our pitch.
His pitch. That I agree with.
Go to thecharlottepost.com, become a donor or a subscriber, and while you're at it, subscribe to our sports newsletter, which has a recap of everything that we've worked on over the past week, things to look forward to, all that other stuff. And we appreciate your time and attention, but your support is vitally important to our mission of providing top-notch journalism for you. So, for everybody here at the Charlotte Post, in beautiful Derrida, I'm Herb.
I'm quadruple P. This is a new year. I've got my P back. Don't listen to him.
Thanks for listening and watching.